I never thought I'd catch my wife cheating on me, especially not during our wedding reception. Funny how life throws you a curveball when you're least expecting it. We'd been married for 3 years and I thought she was the one. She was beautiful, smart, the kind of woman you want to show off to everyone. But I guess I was blind or maybe just too trusting. The reception was in full swing. Laughter, clinking glasses, the hum of a band playing some cheesy love song, the usual chaos of a wedding. I stood near the bar, nursing a drink, watching her dance with some friends. She looked radiant, her dress shimmering under the string lights. But something was off, I just couldn't shake it. Maybe it was the way she kept looking over her shoulder, or the fact that she was texting on her phone way more than she should have been. Then I saw her purse sitting on the table, slightly ajar. I'd never paid much attention to it before, but tonight I felt compelled to peek. My heart hammered in my chest as I reached out, feeling around the small pocket she kept her phone in. It was locked, but I'd seen her leave it unattended a few times. I waited for her to turn around, then slipped my hand inside. That's when I saw the message. The screen glowed brightly, a string of text messages between her and someone I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. I hurriedly read a few snippets. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Don't forget to bring the wine," and worst of all, a photo of her with a guy I hadn't even met, his arm wrapped around her waist, their faces pressed close like they were sharing some secret. The caption, "Finally ours." I couldn't breathe. My fists clenched so tight my knuckles turned white. My first instinct was to yell, to confront her right then and there, but I forced myself to stay calm. Instead, I backed away slowly, clutching her phone like it was a grenade about to explode. I needed to think, to process what I'd just seen. The room spun as I found a quiet corner. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Were there more messages? Were there other men? The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut, a sickening mix of anger and heartbreak swirling in my chest. My palms were sweaty and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room and all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. I stared at her phone, at the message that confirmed what I'd secretly feared. She had been lying to me for months. The worst part was the way she thought I'd never find out, like I was so clueless, so naive. But I was. I was sick of being played. Sick of pretending everything was perfect when it was. I knew I couldn't let this go. Not anymore. I had to do something. I didn't want to just walk away and act like it was no big deal. I wanted her to feel what I felt, humiliated, betrayed, furious. That's when the plan started forming in my mind, sharp and cold. I'd waited long enough. Now I'd make sure she'd regret ever crossing me. I slipped her phone back into her purse, my hands trembling. I kept my face blank, hiding the storm brewing inside. I knew I'd have to be smart about this. No rash moves, no shouting in front of everyone. But I could feel the fire burning in me, the need to make her suffer just a little. As I finally rejoined the crowd, my stomach clenched. I watched her dance, her smile so perfect, so innocent. It was all a lie. I thought about the things I'd do, the words I'd say. This wasn't just about her cheating. This was about my pride, my dignity. And I wasn't going to let her take that away without a fight, not without consequences. I had to plan my revenge carefully, make sure she paid for what she'd done, because I was done being the fool. I took a slow breath, trying to steady myself. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I couldn't stand the idea that she'd been sneaking around behind my back, smiling at me all innocent while she was probably necking some guy in a hotel room or sneaking out late at night. That's what really made my stomach churn, her lies, her betrayal. I had trusted her completely, and she'd turned around and used that trust to screw me over. I had to get ahead of this. My mind kept circling around, trying to find the best way to hit back without making an even bigger mess. I knew I couldn't just confront her right away. That'd be too obvious, too impulsive. I needed to gather more evidence, see how deep it ran. I also had to figure out what I was going to say, because I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. The next few days, I kept my eyes open. I paid close attention to her habits, her schedule, who she was talking to. She was acting normal, or so I thought, but I knew better. I'd seen her messages. That wasn't normal. I started digging through her phone when she wasn't around, testing her to see if she'd leave it lying around again. She didn't, of course. She was smarter than that, but I was persistent. Then I found something else. Hidden deep in her email, a few drafts saved in her trash, I saw a few more snippets, conversations that confirmed she'd been seeing this guy for a while. Not just a fling. It was serious. They'd been planning meetups, exchanging pictures, even talking about futures. It hit me like a sledgehammer. I wasn't just some naive husband. I was a complete idiot for missing the signs. One night I decided to confront her directly. I waited until she was relaxing on the couch, her glass of wine in hand. My heart hammered as I sat beside her trying to find the right words. But I didn't need to be clever. I just laid out the evidence, watching her face twist in shock and then quickly into panic. "You've been cheating on me," I said flatly, voice tight. I saw the messages, the photos, everything. She looked away, her lips trembling. "It's not what it looks like," she mumbled, but her voice was weak. "Oh, really? Because it looks pretty damn clear to me." I grabbed her phone and showed her the messages I'd saved. "How long has this been going on? A year, too?" Her face turned pale. I don't know what to say. I clenched my fists. "You do know that's your excuse. After everything we've built, after the wedding, you're just going to shrug it off." She tried to justify herself, but her words sounded hollow. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was bleeding inside. I knew then I needed a plan, something cold and calculated, to make her see how much she'd screwed up. The seed of revenge started growing quickly. I'd always been a calm guy, but this changed everything. I wanted her to feel the same pain I was feeling, how it was to be lied to be humiliated. I realized that simply walking away wasn't enough. She needed to understand that actions had consequences. I spent the next few days mapping out exactly what I'd do. I would confront her again, but this time I'd do it with a purpose. I'd make sure she'd regret ever crossing me. I wasn't about to let her get away with hiding her secrets, not after I'd seen the truth with my own eyes. I also made a list of the things I could use against her. The messages, the photos, the times I'd seen her sneaking around. This was my leverage. I wasn't just going to let her slide. I had to act smart. I wanted her to know that I was serious, that I wasn't the kind of man who'd sit back and take betrayal lying down. I felt a strange mixture of adrenaline and nausea. My stomach was tied in knots and my palms were sweaty every time I thought about what came next. But I knew I had to be patient. Revenge, I realized, was an art. It wasn't about losing control. It was about striking at the right moment, making her understand that I was the one holding all the cards. That night, I sat on my bed staring at her phone again, the evidence glowing softly on the screen. I felt a cold resolve forming inside me. I was going to do something she'd never see coming. I'd give her a taste of her own medicine and I'd make sure she'd never forget it. Because at this point I wasn't just pissed, I was furious. And I was ready to make her regret ever crossing me. The plan started taking shape in my mind, clear and ruthless. I knew I couldn't just confront her again and expect her to come clean on her own. No, this time I had to be smarter, sneakier. I'd gather everything I needed, more proof, backup, a way to make her feel the weight of her betrayal. I wanted her to realize she'd pushed me to the edge, that I wasn't some gullible husband who'd take her lying down. First, I spent an entire day carefully searching her phone and email, pulling out every piece of evidence I could find. I saved screenshots, printed some of the messages, took photos of the incriminating photos she'd sent. Every detail had to be perfect. Then I started planting little clues, nothing obvious, just enough to keep her guessing. I changed some of her notifications so I'd be alerted if she messaged him again. I even set up a fake email address and messaged her as if I was someone else, just to see if she'd slip up or say something revealing. Meanwhile, I kept pretending everything was normal. I asked her about her day, complimented her dress, acted like I was still completely clueless. But inside, I was boiling. I'd never wanted someone to suffer so badly in my life. Every time I saw her smile, I wanted to crush it. And then I made the decision to lure her into a trap. I knew she'd want to minimize her actions, deny everything, maybe even get defensive. So I arranged for her to find some evidence of her own. I created a scenario where she'd stumble onto something that would make her realize I knew more than she thought. That evening she came home a little late, her eyes glassy from a few drinks. I was waiting in the living room, calm but icy inside. She tried to joke, tried to act normal, but I wasn't buying it. I pointed to her purse, which I'd left slightly open. "You might want to check that," I said, voice cold and even. "There's something you forgot." Her eyes flicked to the purse, then widened when she saw the printed photos I'd secretly taken of her messages. Her face went pale. "What is this?" I crossed my arms, leaning back. "Looks like you're not as discreet as you thought. I found everything. The messages, the plans, the pictures. How long has this been going on?" She stammered, her hands shaking. I didn't mean for it to get this out of control. It just happened." "Really, just happened?" I stepped closer, voice rising slightly. "You think I'm stupid? You've been sneaking around behind my back for months. Do you even realize what you've done to us?" She looked at the floor, tears brimming in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you. Don't give me that. You were caught red-handed and now you're trying to lie your way out of it. Well, it's too late for that." The rage was bubbling over, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I knew everything, that her secret was out. I told her I was done, that I'd planned my revenge carefully. She looked stunned, lost, begging for forgiveness, like that would fix anything, but I knew better. I'd already decided what I was going to do next. I told her I was going to make her regret her choices, that she'd see what betrayal really meant. I'd been generous up to this point, but no more. I was sick of being the fool, and she was going to pay for her lies. My plan was simple but effective. Expose her to her friends, her family, everyone she knew. Make her feel shame she'd never forget. For now, I just wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to be a fool anymore, that I was done trusting her. I leaned in close, eyes blazing. "You're going to regret ever crossing me," I whispered. "And when I'm finished, you're going to wish you never betrayed me at all." Her trembling lips formed a silent apology, but I didn't care. I had already made up my mind. I'd waited long enough. Now I was ready to execute the next step. The silence stretched heavy between us, thick with unspoken threats and broken trust. I finally handed her back her phone, the evidence now firmly in my possession. "Think about what you've lost," I said softly with a cold smile. "Because I promise it's going to be a long, painful ride from here." The night after I confronted her, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying every detail, every lie she'd told. I was numb but simultaneously burning with rage. I knew I had to act quickly to turn her betrayal into her downfall. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making sure she understood exactly what she'd thrown away, and that I was the one in control now. The first thing I did was plan how to reveal her secret in front of her closest people. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, humiliated, not just by me, but by everyone she cared about. I started gathering everything: screenshots of messages, photos, and even a few recordings of her voice from earlier conversations. I wanted to be prepared for whatever she might throw back, for any denial or manipulation. I also reached out to a few friends I trusted, people who knew her well enough to help. I told them what was going on, but I kept the details vague. Just enough to get their support, enough to create a backup crew for what was coming. I knew I'd need allies. I wanted witnesses. Over the next 2 days, I kept my cool but worked behind the scenes. I connected with a private investigator I knew, just to verify everything. Sure enough, he confirmed my suspicions. She'd been meeting him regularly, more than I'd originally seen, in places I never suspected. The evidence was overwhelming. I had everything I needed to blow this wide open. Meanwhile, I took a day to prepare myself emotionally. I went for a long walk in the woods, feeling the cool breeze on my face, trying to steady my nerves. Every step I took felt like I was walking closer to the moment I'd finally make her pay. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. Later that evening, I sat her down, not in a shouting match, but in a calm, deadly serious tone. I told her I had one last thing to say, that I knew everything. She looked at me, eyes pleading, trembling. "Stop lying," I said sharply. "I've seen the messages, the photos, everything. You've been cheating on me for months, maybe longer, and I don't want to hear any excuses. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." Her face crumpled, tears spilling over her cheeks. "Please, don't," I interrupted. "I'm done listening to your lies. I want to do this with clarity, not chaos. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave tonight and I'm going to tell everyone what you did. Your friends, your family, everyone. You're going to be humiliated because you deserve it. And I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." Her voice broke. "You're going to ruin me?" "No," I said, voice cold. "You already did that to yourself. I'm just going to give everyone the truth, and then I'll decide what happens next. But I can tell you this, our marriage is over. You're not coming back." It was a brutal moment, but I felt a strange sense of relief. Something inside me had snapped. No more hiding, no more pretending. I'd finally taken control of the situation. All the lies, the sneaking around, they were about to be exposed. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be cornered, to be powerless. That night she packed her bags and left, tears streaming down her face. I watched her go, feeling the weight of that decision settle deep into my chest. I knew the fallout would be messy. Her pride would shatter, her reputation damaged. But I didn't care anymore. All I cared about was waking up the next morning knowing I'd done the right thing, at least for me. The next step was clear. I was going to tell everyone what she'd done. I had the evidence, the witnesses, and the resolve. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without consequences. I picked up the phone, trembling slightly, and prepared to make the call that would change everything. As I dialed, I realized that this was just the beginning. She thought she was clever, but I was about to show her just how far her lies could go. The moment I pressed send, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. But one thing was certain, I was done being the victim. She'd pushed me too far this time, and now I was taking back control, no matter what it took. The call I made that evening wasn't just about spilling the truth, it was about sending a message. I had all the evidence ready, screenshots, recordings, the whole damn story, and I was determined to make her regret every second of her betrayal. As I dialed, my stomach did that familiar knotting thing, part anticipation, part dread. I knew this was going to change everything. The line rang twice before someone picked up. It was her best friend, Lisa. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I cut straight to the point. "Lisa, I need you to listen carefully. I've got proof, everything, about my wife, about her affair. I want you to know the truth because I'm done hiding it. She's been cheating on me with my best man, and I'm going public with it." There was silence on the other end, then a shaky breath. "Oh my God, I had no idea." "Yeah, well, now you do. I don't want you to defend her. I want you to understand what kind of person she really is. And I want you to tell everyone you know, because I'm done being a fool. If she's lied to me, she's lied to everyone else too." I went on, giving her a quick rundown of the evidence I'd collected, the texts, the photos, the secret meetings. I told her I'd planned this for days, that I wasn't going to let her destroy what little dignity she had left. I could hear her breathing heavy, like she was trying to process everything. "You're serious?" she finally whispered. "Dead serious. It's over. The marriage, her reputation, everything. And I want everyone to know the truth. I want her to feel what it's like to be exposed, humiliated. That's my revenge." I hung up after that, feeling a strange mix of relief and rage. I'd done what I could. Now I just needed to wait for everything to blow up. Over the next few hours, I watched my phone, waiting for the fallout. I started receiving messages from friends and family, shocked and angry. Some called to ask how I was holding up, others to say they didn't believe it at first but now saw the truth. The dominoes were falling, and I felt a dark satisfaction. She had played her hand, and I was the one dealing the final blow. The next morning, after a restless night, I knew it was time for the last step. I made my way to her apartment to leave her the final proof. I carried the printed evidence, a folder thick with screenshots, audio clips, and a detailed timeline. I knocked twice, then pushed the door open when she didn't answer. She was sitting on the couch, her face pale and blotchy from crying. Her eyes widened when she saw the folder in my hand. She knew what it meant. I placed it on the table, then looked her straight in the eye. "You betrayed me," I said quietly but firmly. "You lied and cheated. I've given you enough chances, enough warnings, but I'm done now. Here's everything, learn from it." She tried to speak, but I cut her off. "No more excuses, no more pretending. You're not taking anything from me anymore. You've lost everything, including my trust, and I want you to know I'm moving on for good." Without another word, I turned and walked out, leaving her sitting there, trembling, clutching the folder like a lifeline to her crumbling facade. As I stepped outside, I felt a strange sense of peace, finally free from the nightmare she'd brought into my life. I closed the door behind me, keys in hand, and headed straight to the lawyer's office. I was done with her, done with the lies and the betrayal. I was reclaiming my life now, piece by piece, one concrete action at a time. And in that moment, I realized something clear. Sometimes the only way to truly move on is to take control, to cut the poison out. Because in the end, nobody's going to fix what's broken but you. Standing outside the lawyer's office, I finally felt that long, heavy weight lift off my shoulders. It was like I had been carrying around this crushing burden, her lies, her betrayal, the damage she'd done, and now I was finally releasing it. I handed over the papers, the evidence, all the proof I'd meticulously collected. The lawyer nodded silently, understanding exactly what I wanted. No more dragging this out, no more second chances, just a clean break. I looked down at my hands, trembling slightly but with a strange sense of calm. I'd done what needed to be done. I handed over the keys to her apartment, told the lawyer to serve the papers, and walked out into the street. The sun was shining, brighter than it had been in a long time. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, and finally let myself relax. As I stood there, I realized how much I'd been holding in: anger, hurt, a sense of betrayal, and now all of it was finally out in the open. I could breathe again. I felt a strange mixture of relief, anger, and even a little pride. I'd taken control of the chaos she'd unleashed and turned it into my own victory. I knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be days of pain and reflection. There would be moments when I'd question everything, but for now I was free from her lies. I was free from the betrayal. And most importantly, I was free to rebuild my life on my own terms. Walking away from the office, I felt a new sense of clarity. I'd learned something valuable, not just about her, but about myself. I'd thought I was weak, naive, trusting too much. But I realized I was stronger than I'd given myself credit for. I had the power to decide what my future looked like, and I was done letting someone else decide it for me. That night I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the empty walls and feeling the silence. It was strange, peaceful even. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. I didn't have to hide my pain or pretend everything was okay. I allowed myself to feel everything: anger, sadness, victory, and then I let it go. In the days that followed, I started focusing on myself. I went to the gym, reconnected with old friends, and took small steps to rebuild what she'd tried to destroy. I realized I didn't need her to be happy. I just needed to be honest with myself, to learn from what happened, and to know that I was better off without her. Looking back, I can honestly say I don't regret what I did. Yes, it was painful to see her fall apart, to watch her realize her secrets were out. But it was necessary. If I'd kept silent, I'd have kept living in her shadow, always wondering if I was enough. Now, I know I am. And I know that sometimes the only way to truly move forward is to confront the darkness head-on. So to anyone out there in a similar situation, listen. You deserve honesty, respect, and loyalty. Don't settle for anything less. And if someone cheats and betrays you, don't be afraid to take what's yours: your dignity, your peace, your life, and walk away. Because in the end, the strongest thing you can do is stand tall, even when everything's falling apart. And from that chaos, you'll find a new beginning.